Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we are doing the last of the ALA's Banned or Challenged Books list from 2023, Tricks by Ellen Hopkins. Now, if you were here for last year's ALA books, you may be familiar with Ellen Hopkins as she has been on the list before with her book called Crank, which is inspired by her daughter's drug trip with Crank. A little bit of savoring the mother in that. I don't know the chronological order between this and Crank, but today the author decided not just to have one traumatized teenager, but five. Ellen Hopkins has really picked her niche. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt. You write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, like this Monday, we bask in your creative genius because, guys, I love celebrating the contemporary authors of today, no matter what level you're at. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit it to the Fresh Meat feature with the first chapter and the cover, that chapter will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work because, man, is that hard. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including the local library upon request. And my next novel, Bodymore Zero, will be coming out in October. So keep your eyes peeled for the ARC copies going out eventually in the summer. And I hope you enjoy it because it has been a real pleasure to me to get to know Casey and Ralph more. And I hope you love them almost as much as I do. It'll be kind of hard to compete with the love that I have for them, but you know, we can try. With that said, let's jump into the book. So, Ellen Hopkins' Tricks is about five teenagers, all from different traumatized backgrounds, getting trafficked. Yeah, that's the base of it. It was tied for number 7/8 in 2023 with 56 challenges nationwide between 100,000 schools, K through 12. And this book was challenged for allegedly being sexually explicit, drugs, rape, LGBTQAI plus content. So those are the things. After having read two of Ellen Hopkins' books, I do not like her writing style. I do not like her choice of writing. I feel like it's beating me over the head with trauma. And the way that she writes, she calls it verse. It doesn't feel like anything meaningful to me. It just feels like skipping the world building, the nuance, in order to skip through just layering trauma on top of trauma. So I cannot stand her writing. And then here you get five different characters. And because of the way that it's written, I feel like I'm reading five of the same story again and again and again and again. And for no purpose other than to emotionally traumatize the reader. That's what it feels like to me. Now, I wasn't traumatized because this kind of stuff just gets boring to me when there is literally nothing going on, but that wants to smack you in the face with trauma to try to make you feel bad. But that's my problem. I'll look forward to your guys' thoughts in the comments below. This is also up for, since it's being challenged in schools, I would love to know your thoughts on whether or not you think the challenges are legitimate to this. Personally, at this point, so last year I was kind of taking a stance one way or another when it came to these books on like what I thought about their placement. For the most part, I mean, aside, I'll have my comments. But for the most part, I also think that these books on this list, or any book that is getting challenged, is really up to the district that they're being challenged in. I don't think that it's really my place to determine what books are being challenged or are not being challenged in any specific area. And I think it's kind of silly to assume that every place in the country has to have exactly the same books in every single school. I think the people in that community will know better what they want to be served with. And so then it eventually comes down to just the people of that district to make that choice. Not me, not somebody in Kansas deciding for California, not California deciding for Colorado, but just locales. So the point here is to let you guys know what's in these books, to get conversation about these books started, and then, you know, to just express different opinions on how we feel about these books, because ultimately what you choose or not choose to read or carry or not carry is going to be a personal choice. So that's what I want to do here, especially when these books generally contain such contentious issues that they're so difficult to talk about. I know this is a total side tangent, so I'm very sorry about this, but this is after like what 25 of these books about. And every time I start going down this list with these types of books, I kind of share them as I read on the Discord so that we can like talk about them as we go through. And sometimes I feel really bad because they're very traumatizing with the content in them. And I don't want to like keep throwing that at people. It kind of gets annoying and uncomfortable to continuously be posting books that are written about teenagers having explicit sex all the time. So I kind of pull back. Uh, but I like to discuss the topics. However, it 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 worried me last year when I first started doing it, and it still worries me sometimes, but I'm getting better at it about posting this stuff because they are contentious issues. And so if you actually have conversation, it can make, if people aren't ready for that kind of conversation, it can make people uncomfortable, or it can get people heated because you misunderstand, or it's such a complicated, complex issue in any of these things, whether it's sexual explicit content for teenagers, drugs, rape, and expressions of rape in a story, or LGBT content. There are just so many ways to approach it and so many feelings that are often personal that it gets kind of scary to be introducing the conversations because you don't want to put anybody out, but you are obviously going to all have opinions that are very individual. So instead of just like straight up being like, banned or not banned or whatever, I just want to present the stories, discuss the elements of the stories, and then also obviously discuss like my opinions on the book because you're never going to get away from that. But so that's what this is going to be. And this is the last book of 2023. Thank goodness. Every time I get into the ALA books list, I'm like, I forgot how miserable this is. We had like 8 months between this and the last list, and I forgot what it felt like to be reading these. So we're dealing with more story in verse, which I can't say that I have a preference for. I know that I can understand circumstances where it would work, but in this, it feels like it erased the nuance, it erased the understanding, and because there was never anything but constant trauma, it felt like an excuse to not develop anything, and then also a way to sort of get out of plot holes or get out of explaining things because, oh, we're just going to skip through all of the things, all of the safety procedures that would actually stop this from happening because we're now doing it in prose. So although I can see where stories told in verse has a purpose and has a style that can work, so far my experience with it has been it just feels like the author is lazy. But that's my personal feelings on just what I've read so far. With that said, let's get into the summary, and then we'll get into the final comments at the end eventually if I don't have to repeat myself with if I have any that I did not already say during the synopsis. So we open with the first character, Eden. She's described how she has fallen in love with this boy her parents obviously would not approve of because he's questioning religion. He goes to her church, but he's questioning religion and its legitimacy. Her parents are Pentecostal, her dad's a pastor, and she's a bit of a troublemaker, saying, quote, is a hellfire and brimstone preaching, Assembly of God minister, and mama is not nearly as sweet as she seems, right-hand woman by the almighty God, their daughters, that's me, Eden, and my sister, Eve, yeah, no pressure at all, will toe the Pentecostal line. Sometimes even I pretend to talk in tongues just to keep them believing that we're heaven bound despite the fact that we go to public school. Mama's too lazy to homeschool and come face to face with the unsaved every day. It then says how strict they are, that you should only date when you are ready to marry, but Eden's not ready to marry, but she still wants to date. Not only is she dating against her father's will, but the kind of guy that she's dating thinks that religion is for idiot followers and nobody else. Personally, I don't know how you date someone who hates you and your family unless you also hate your family. So at this point, I'm like, Eden, do you hate your family already? The guy that she's dating claims that he is religious, but also thinks that God wasn't a man, that was just written by old men who wanted to control their wives. Then he says that he relates to God in a personal way, and so Eden loves him even more. I think that she just likes the rebellious thing that's all about him and that he is very opposite to her parents. She says that they met at church when her dad was on stage. She said that she was the daughter of the preacher, and Andrew was like, but you look so normal. She then leaned in to smell him and was like, I understand what you mean. She said that she's a cynic of the church, insinuating that her dad is stealing from his business partners and her mom is cheating on her dad, so call her cynical of people who say that they believe in God and the whole church thing. Eden says that she's kissed a few boys before, but none of them ever came back because of who her dad is. However, Andrew goes to a different school and doesn't care who her dad is. His mom teaches feminist theory and his dad is a rancher. She's afraid of her dad finding out that she's dating Andrew because he's 18, she's 16 and a half, and Because she lives in Idaho, there are no Romeo and Juliet laws, so her dad could charge him with statutory rape. Now she's talking about sneaking off to meet him under her dad's nose until she's 18 and her dad can't do anything. And she is so passionate about it that she thinks about how every time they meet, it might be their last. Then she says that God is the source of love, so he must be the reason that she has feelings for Andrew. Then we switch over to teen number 2, who is Seth Parnell. It opens with him hiding from his family, afraid to tell them the truth. He doesn't like to bike or playing army. He wants to be an artist. His mom is dead, and she's the only one who ever supported his dreams of art. Though he also mentions sex. So it starts out very clearly aligning him with art and rejecting typical masculine things to insinuate that the character is gay before he's actually gay. I guess the start of this section where he's hiding in a closet is also a double entendre. He says that while his mother supported his art, she was very Catholic when it came to sex. That'll change later when he says, Mom would support me. But he's like, definitely good thing that Mom died before she found out that I was gay, because she definitely would not support that. He says that he almost came out to his dad once, but his dad is also a stereotype. He says the first person to recognize that he was gay was a priest at church who took advantage of him, layering on more stereotypes. Quote, I can't even tell dad, though I've come very close a couple of times in response to his totally cliche homophobic views. Bible says God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and no damn bleeding heart liberal is going to tell me different. Most definitely not this bleeding heart liberal. Of course, Dad has no clue that's what I am, or have become, because of who I am. All of the way inside, the biggest part of me, the part that I hide. Wonder what he'd say if I told him the first person who recognized what I am was a priest. Father Howard knew. Took advantage too. Maybe I'll confess it all to Dad someday. But not while he's still grieving over Mom. I am too. And if I lost my dad because of any of this, I really don't know what I'd do. He says that he's dated girls before and he may have loved one of them, but he's not sexually attracted to them. She didn't want to have sex yet though, and that worked for him since he didn't want to have sex until he decided that he needed to do what the other guys his age were doing, which was looking for sex. Peer pressure is real. People acting in a way that they believe is expected of them, even if they don't want to, is real. Seth was more attracted to his girlfriend's older brother, who was a jock though. So he broke up with her because he was worried about looking at the brother for too long until somebody noticed. She tries to stop him from leaving, even promising to have sex with him if he stays. She lowers to her knees and starts giving him oral. He's hard, but tells her no, he can't, and then runs away. Of course, this good girl turns into a bad girl at that moment, haughty and insulting him, probably feeling humiliated, but still. She says, up yours, what are you, gay? And he mutters that maybe he is gay as she storms off for moral support. Seth goes on about how rumors kill people in this county, and it happened with people like Billy Caldwell and Nate Fisher when they caught Nate's mom kissing someone out back. At least, that's what the rumor was. It wasn't true, yet Nate's dad still took a shotgun to mass and killed a bunch of people. Described as, quote, that church parking lot looked a lot like a street in Baghdad. Afterwards, Billy only felt kinda bad, but he blamed Nate's dad 100%. Meanwhile, Nate took an eye out of Billy's family's hunting dog. He says that he is horny and fools around a bit, but isn't letting anyone have sex with him because he wants the right guy to come along to have sex with him. Then he meets the right guy in Louisville. Then we switch over to teen number 3, who is Whitney Lang. Whitney is living in her sister's shadow. While there's nothing wrong with her necessarily, she's always just compared to her sister, and her sister is better. When her parents are both at home, they tend to fight. So more and more, her mom's staying out of the house and she's spending time with her dad. She loves her dad, though not enough to, talk to him about anything. This is one of those details that we just skip over so that we can traffic her. Seems like everyone is mostly absent in her life. There's a lot of mention of homeless people in California. Then she brings up her boyfriend, Lucas, and how she's a walking poster child for teenage promiscuity. But she hasn't gone all the way with Lucas yet, though she's thinking about it. Why? I don't know. It's just kind of, again, because this is written in verse, it just kind of thrusts everything in your direction without really developing any of it. And you're like, but why are we here? And why are we talking about homeless people? It has nothing to do with anything. I thought that she was, with the way that it introduced this, I thought it was going to be like, so yeah, with her absent parents and her desire to be noticed and feel better about herself because Kira is recognized as the better sister, she just started picking up homeless dudes and banging homeless dudes and then got trafficked by a dude after banging a homeless dude. Like, that's where I thought that was going to go. But the homelessness has nothing to do with anything. I don't even know why it's mentioned. Because after introducing the homelessness thing, she talks about how she met Lucas at an honors choir performance a year ago. Her sister performed 2 solos, and Lucas pretended that he knew the words while he was singing on stage. After the recital, Whitney found her sister talking to Lucas and got her to go to and got her to go away so that she could talk to Lucas because she knew that Lucas wasn't Kira's type. It turns out that Lucas also said that Whitney's sister was a bitch when they first spoke, and this won over Whitney's heart because, everybody thinks that Kira is the best, and she just wanted somebody else to see Kira the way that she saw Kira. So they shared this unpopular sentiment in her heart, and they hit it off. After some time and many makeout sessions, she has Lucas over when her family is out, and while they're getting hot and heavy, some faces float past the window. I was so confused by this mention of faces in the window because it doesn't turn into anything. This scene immediately ends. We then switch over to the next teenager, number 4, which is Ginger Cordell. Open with Ginger saying that she has many faces that she doesn't let anyone see. Ginger's listening to her mom talk to her boyfriend on the phone and is upset about it. Turns out Iris, who is her mother, wants to be the cool, young-feeling mom who goes by her first name of being called Iris by her kids, and that makes her feel sexy. Ginger is annoyed at her mom not being a mom, and it reminded me a lot of Lochan in Forbidden. Quote, "Not sure if she was ever really pretty, but if she was, too many babies and too much hard living has sucked her dry. Too much, too many. That describes Iris pretty well. Too much booze, too many smokes, way too many pills, speed, downers, everything in between. Anything to shut off and shut up what's left of her brain. Her mom's in an abusive relationship and then comes to her for comfort. But she doesn't have any sympathy left, which is fair because she wants to beat her mother as much as she wants to hug her mother, as you got this mixture of borderline, quote, smack down. That's how she looks, but I don't feel bad about it. She wants me to mother her. Well, what mother with half a pair of balls wouldn't say the same thing? Not counting my mother, and I've got a full pair. I swear that I can see smoke billowing from her ears. Who made you so stinking mean?" She spits the S's. What a fucking stupid question. Isn't she expecting my answer? Who do you freaking think? She wants to say more, but at this exact moment, Graham comes into the room carrying an armful of detergent-y smelling laundry. Her head swivels toward us. Am I interrupting something?" Iris shakes her head. "Nothing important. I need a smoke." She rolls off the bed. "And a beer." Since Graham came in, Mom goes away. Ginger likes Graham way more than Mother, and Grandma comforts Ginger. Then Ginger is off to her own bedroom now that she is comforted. We switch to the 5th teenager that we will be following in this journey, Cody Bennett. Cody introduces that he doesn't know his dad. He also doesn't know how he was born because his mother is a prude. He's just like, she wouldn't have done a hookup, but I don't know then how I'm born because my dad isn't really my dad. This is such a bizarre introduction, but whatever. He doesn't dislike his mother, though, as if being a prude would be some sort of thing to detest, or that it would denotate that she was some kind of bad person. Like, that's the weird juxtaposition of this. He's like, I don't know how I was born because my mother was a prude, but I still like her. Okay. But, like, not being promiscuous is not a character flaw. So why is the setup always in these? That if you're promiscuous, it's either a character flaw, or if you're a prude, you're a character flaw, but you can't have, like, just a healthy look at relationships, period. It has to be one extreme or the other every single time, all the time. And I know that this is a character. Even in out-of-story fiction, it's treated like you have to be one or the other. And this kind of goes back to the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about Madonna versus Horror Complex, where it's always an extreme of demonizing the other one. It doesn't matter what you are. Getting back to the story, Cody is pretty average, living in Las Vegas, and he likes it that way because it allows him to fly under the radar. He's not doing great in school, but he's not doing bad in school. He's not really popular, but it doesn't really matter. His stepdad is an airplane mechanic who met his mom at work and then kept pursuing her even after she said no thank you, but it worked out. Cody describes his stepdad as, quote, "Jack is as honest as a mare-sniffing stud, which is why he gets along with my mom. She can't stand when people lie. Can't blame her. So I try not to do much out-and-out lying. Omitting is something else." Which, yeah, totally not weird at all to be obsessed with talking about your parents in sexual terms constantly, which is something that you'll see throughout this book as well. The characters, all of them, are very obsessed with talking about each other's sex lives, their parents' sex lives, their siblings' sex lives. Everybody is obsessed. He's working at his GameStop job, getting ready to close and go to another party like he has been since his parents aren't paying attention to him, when this hottie that is a friend with his ex walks in and then starts just like thickly laying on the flirting with him. Instantly, the boy is sprung. Ronnie flirts with him even harder, flashing him her nipple through her shirt, and then Cody agrees to go out with her. He thinks that it could be a trap set up by his ex to see just how smarmy he is, and so he questions if he should even agree to this little shindig with her, but Ronnie is so freaking hot that it doesn't even matter. Now he is thinking about nailing Ronnie, and he's obsessing about jerking off and his habits. Quote, well, yeah, there is the idea that I just might hook up with one very hot girl. I have to admit, I have thought about boinking her more than once while taking solo care of a hard-on. Oh yeah, the big M. Probably do it more than I should, and Ronnie is definitely boner bait. At least when I left my own imagination instead of the internet porn. Viva la webcams! I was just left wondering. Teenagers. Are you really talking like this? Were you really talking like this 15 years ago? I was a teenager once, 100 years ago. Were people really saying the big M? Cody gets home. It's just like, it's like mom trying to be cool is what it feels like to me. It's, I understand you. Hello, kids. Hello, fellow children. Is mom coming into the group to see like if her kids are having sex because they won't tell her. So she has to pretend to be a teenager to hear about their sex lives so then she can talk to them as their mother about their sex lives. That's the vibe that I get. Cody gets home and hears his parents talking about waiting to see what the doctor says. When he walks in, they won't tell him what's happening. His little brother comes in and curses because the park banned skateboards. He gets talked to by their dad about not cursing. Then Cody goes on his date with Ronnie, already high. He shares his pot with her to help her loosen up from being the frigid bitch that she apparently normally is. That's his words. I don't know why everybody in this book is vile. That's another thing that is constantly in these ALA books. It's just like everybody is mean to one another. Everybody thinks poorly of one another. Everybody wants to use one another. Everybody is abusive. I don't like it. He asks Ronnie why she chose him as they're driving. Her hand is on his thigh and she says, I've been in love with you for a very long time. Then we go back to Eden. She's thinking about how much she loves her boyfriend, that he is literally her skin. Like, he is her skin. She dips on the wedding that she was expected to go to because she wants to spend time with her boyfriend while her family is out of the house. She says, I love you, and he says, I love you back, and she wants to give him her virginity. Quote, I've gone and done it. I tense, waiting for a response. It's swift. Oh God, Eden, I love you too. How did I ever live without you? It's like I was missing a huge part of me, the best part of me, until I found you. I want. He loses his words. He never does that. I kiss his temples, close his eyes with kisses. What? What do you want? His eyes stay closed. I stare at it until the night as he says, I want to be with you always, to share forever with you. I want to give you more than I have to give now. Security, a comfortable life. He pauses, considers, decides to finish. I want to take from you what I have no right to take. Not now, not yet. But that doesn't mean that I want it less. Though they determine that when the first time comes around, it will be perfect, they are going to wait. We get the teens' speed run of them having massive feelings, and quote, he says, so why did you wait? And how did you know the right person was me? I know all guys are supposed to be sluts or something, but sex with just anyone never did seem exactly right to me. Maybe it's my Catholic upbringing. Or, hell, who knows? Maybe I need Viagra already. He laughs. Nah, that can't be the problem. When I'm with you, I don't need a pill to want to make love to you. He always says the right things. Maybe he should be a politician. As for you, I suspected that you might be the right person from the first time we met. You were sure of yourself, your beliefs, and you didn't let me sway you. I loved your self-confidence, your obvious loyalty, your solid sense of right and wrong. Okay, so maybe he's not exactly politician material. When did you know for sure? The first time I kissed you. One kiss. I was totally hooked, addicted to you. I could never love anyone the way that I love you. I'll follow you across the universe. I do find it interesting at this moment that he says that he has a Catholic upbringing that ended up in a Pentecostal church. Not that you can't change your denominations, but it is kind of strange, especially where we get no anything on the background of this. It's just like, it might have just been better to leave that as maybe it was my Pentecostal background, maybe it was my Christian background, but like, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that. I accept that. They promise to love each other forever and consider running away together, though they are determined not to do that. I'm cringing so hard. I'm sorry to every teenager who feels this way, like this overwhelming feel of emotion that he is literally me. I love him that much. He is my skin. But I was cringing. Quote, I walk home slowly, trying to soak up the things that Andrew said tonight, sponge up them, absorb them through my skin, into my flesh, so that they'll always live inside me. I know Andrew and I were meant to be together. How can I prove it to my parents? How can I make them understand that love is real? This deep must come from God. I look up again at the night sky, and here, city lights take center stage. Mute the celestial background. I belong here, in the city, don't belong in my parents' cold house. I'm astray, called to another place, a wild place, where rules and expectations don't dare intrude. A warm place, safe in Andrew's arms. We get into using religious imagery, somewhat ironic from me talking about the religious trauma in the women's video I did about 2 weeks ago, but it is always this, quote, an awakening. This must be how Eve, the original, felt after taking a bite of forbidden fruit. Every nerve on fire, every fiber of flesh alive with desire. If Andrew was here beside me on my not exactly a feather bed, I would give him my virginity. Give it gladly, without a second thought. It belongs to him. I close my eyes, return to the foothills, to the back of the tundra, to a double sleeping bag. I slip inside, into a warm envelope of goose down. And Andrew, his voice fills my head. I want to take from you what I have no right to. Oh, Andrew, I want that too. Tonight, right now. My body is begging to learn what your body wants to teach it. Need blisters up, and with it, a way to teach myself some of what I'm dying to know. Abstinence programs encourage it. Mama not only discourages it, but swears that it put Mary Magdalene on the highway to degradation. What Mama forgets is that Mary Magdalene was the forgiveness poster child. It was at this point that I was like, in these books, is abstinence ever shown in like a neutral light at all? Or does it require a religious book to be seen as legitimate? Like, maybe I'm crazy, but I think that there is a middle ground between like demonizing abstinence or saying that abstinence is the only way. I think that you can live a normal life without obsessing over sex, whether you're having it or not, right? Maybe. At home, she's touching herself, imagining Andrew as she describes herself starting to masturbate. However, she quickly panics, thinking that she will be unprepared for when Andrew and her finally do it, so she goes to her computer to investigate, quote, losing your virginity. Though before she gets too far looking into it, her sister gets home from the wedding, and she asks about how the wedding went, and if the boy that she favored asked her to dance. Eve says yes, and Eden also assumes that her sister has never thought about sex before. Back to Seth, he's eating dinner with his dad before saying that he's going to go meet someone. He's wondering how his dad can still go to church and believe in God since mom has died. Seth also talks about how he initially considered sex to only be mutual masturbation and not anything deeper until about the fourth time he had sex with his current boyfriend. His sex ed books just weren't good enough. His sex ed books just weren't good enough on teaching him about sex. Quote, up until our fourth time together, individual masturbation was the bulk of my sexual experience. There was a few short chapters of touch here, I'll touch there in my very slim book of adolescent sexual escapades, but nothing more. I had no idea what to do beyond that. When I slipped into my fantasies, I had always had sex with men. But that day, overwhelmed as I was with desire for Loren, I was scared. Nothing had ever scared me so much, not even knowing that my mom was going to die. His boyfriend is an older man named Loren, and he thinks about how much he enjoys being around him, how much Loren wants to please him, and how things will have to change one day when he chooses to be the guy that pleases his dad or the guy that gets to live his life how he wants with Loren. Meeting Loren at Loren's house, Loren breaks the news that he is going to be sent off to New York for 3 months to complete his bachelor's degree to become, you guessed it, a minister. Because of course we're doing this again. He tells Seth that Seth can't come, and he's leaving in May, so Seth doesn't have to worry, that's a couple months away. Seth asks if Lauren is ever coming back. Then we switch over to Whitney Lang. Whitney's friend just broke up with her boyfriend and is now vicariously living through Whitney, asking her if she's had sex with her boyfriend Lucas yet. I never feel more alien when I'm reading these books than when everybody is obsessed with who everyone is sleeping with and constantly asking for more and more personal details. Quote, I swear, she's panting. I could make her day, her month even, by inventing something juicy. But where would that leave what's left of my reputation? Do I care? Geez, she would. And quote, she would. And we both know the way that I've circumvented her questions means I'm still a virgin. Technically, anyway. It's the technically part that has now piqued her interest. Okay then, how far have you gone? I want every single detail. Why do people feel so entitled to other people's sex lives? That's the real question. Maybe it is normal for people to think that they have a right to your sex life, and I'm the weird one for saying no, that's personal, but peer pressure has never really worked on me. Like, one of the things that I dislike when someone contacts me to read their book is to pitch me with a bunch of blurbs from how other people thought about their book, and I'm like, I'm glad that other people liked your book, but like, I'm not other people, and other people's opinions are not going to feed my opinion in that way. Personal opinions don't really inform what I'll think about something or how I'll experience it, though it can inform me kind of more directions on how to approach something in post. Anyway, Whitney's friend keeps pushing her for all of the details of everything sexual that Whitney has ever done with her boyfriend, only stopping when Whitney mentions giving her boyfriend oral yesterday. Leaving the mall, she sees a hot older guy in the parking lot and immediately thinks about how he looks like a hot older brother, and if that was her older brother, then her friends wouldn't want to be her friends. They just want to be her friends so that they could bang her older brother. What a weird thing to think about a guy at the mall. Quote, weirdo? Maybe. I mean, he's at least 10 years older than me, and he's def taken an interest. Do weirdos come this hot? My guess is no. But I'm not here to pick up a guy. Yeah, Lucas, remember him? Especially one who could be my, what, big brother? Wow, it might be cool to have a big brother hot enough to be a rock star. No, wait, all of my friends would want me to introduce them. Then they wouldn't be my friends anymore because they'd be doing it with my brother. Scratch all of that. Don't want a hot brother, or any brother at all. Don't even want my sister. And why the heck am I thinking all of this anyway? Just because some pervert guy is sitting outside the Gap might or might not have checked me out? Then we get, quote, warped. But who's warped, him or me? Okay, I'm pretty sure that I know the answer. Pretty sure that I've gone from appreciating some nice-looking hot older guy to imagining that I have some fictional brother who is doing unmentionable things with my best friends. I steal a covert glance at Paige, who is deaf not noticing the guy, who is deaf not my brother at all, let alone having sex with him. I need food. Haven't eaten today. As Paige and I go inside, I can feel not brother's eyes crawling all over my back. I nudge Paige. Psst. Did you see that cute guy checking us out? What guy? She turns and I follow her eyes, only to find his eyes locked on me. Well, he's deaf checking you out. Talk about robbing the cradle or wanting to, like, totally tasteless. Come on, there's a pair of skinny jeans with my name on them right over there. Then they go and continue on shopping, where Whitney says that Paige likes to wear skinny jeans, but she has way too many curves, so they don't look good on her. But you can't tell your friends that because, like, then they'll get mad. So she's just like, yeah, girl, slay those jeans. Whitney then judges Paige for spending way too much money on clothing that she won't look good in, and then says that Paige probably stole from Claire's because she gets this rush from stealing. It's not like she needs to. They walk around laughing so hard that Whitney has to pee when she sees the hot not brother guy from earlier checking her out again. Quote, I still have to pee, but before I do, I have to say something to that hot monkey. Ooh, that was a very bad thought. I wonder how hot his monkey is. Okay, way worse thought. What's up with me? That guy over there, staring. I tell Paige. Let's talk to him. She pulls her eyes away from the hot dog on a stick sign. What? Hey, no, that's stupid. He might get the wrong idea. Or exactly, the right idea. Yeah, maybe. But don't you want to know where he's coming from? I don't wait for her answer. I don't understand why she's obsessed with this guy to the point that, like, you can recognize him from afar, but like you have a boyfriend. And again, this is just erasing the nuance, and it feels so random that I don't understand what the author was trying to do with this other than like forcing these teens together, because there's no point in this. But she's trying to set up what is the most contrived way for this character to be trafficked with this random man stalking her at the mall, and she's like, that freaking hottie McMonkey butt. I wonder what his monkey looks like. Monkey, hottie, monkey, brother, monkey. I don't know why we're here. There's so many better ways to do this than this. The two girls talk to him and he hits on Whitney hard and they exchange names. His name is Bryn and he gives her his card. By the way, she's 15. So you've got this like at least 25 to 30-year-old man hitting openly on this 15-year-old girl at the mall. Switch over to Ginger, and Ginger is lamenting how she can't really shoot for the stars. She can't really have too many goals because she's pretty much a failure and is only shooting for maybe a decent job as a waitress in 1 to 2 friends in the future in the town that she lives in because she's never going to be anything. Ginger then says that she has a crush on this goth girl in her creative class, but she's nervous. She's never kissed anyone, and she's judging the goth girl's parents. Her mom is in jail for armed robbery. Stepdad is a bartender at a sleazy bar off the highway. I would say, considering what Ginger thinks of her own mother, she maybe shouldn't be judging other people's parents that hard, because that's probably a step up from her parents, not gonna lie. Ginger thinks about hooking up her mom with Alex's dad, that's the goth girl. Alex and Ginger are then hanging out, talking about their parents' sex lives, because I don't know why this book is obsessed with making kids talk about their parents having sex. That was never part of my childhood, but what do I know about anybody else's childhoods? These kids aren't me. I'm just like, I don't know any kids that like to talk about their parents having sex. Like, this is why I source the information out to you guys. I need to know the consensus of, like, am I the one that reads this and goes, what the frick? Because I read all of these characters talking about their parents having sex, and I'm like, get a hobby. What are you doing? This was never even a topic in my life. So why are all these books obsessed with it? Ginger thinks about how all of the moms that she knows sucks, and if she was ever a mom, she'd make sure that her kids looked up to her. Then it's time to go and head home, and Ginger's got a cigarette off of Alex, and she's thinking that if she dies, she doesn't really care because she doesn't really want to live. She gets home and finds paramedics crowded around her house. Someone ran over her younger brother, Sandy, and he's on the ground. 2 ambulances arrive, one drives off with him, and the cops tell Ginger to try and get a hold of her mother so that they can get treatment for the run-over kid, because unless they get mother's consent, they can't give the kid treatment, and grandma's not going to be good enough to give consent because she's not the guardian parent. And this is a time-sensitive thing, so they need to get the mother immediately. This, I don't know if this actually feels legitimate, because they're going to be like, what? Your child gets to die because you were unreachable and he just ran out of time? Ginger is paramedics, please fact check me on this, because I don't know any better. Ginger is blaming herself for the hit and run because she was out smoking pot when she should have been here to protect her siblings. Then she says that she'll make sure that she gets run over next if her brother dies. Ginger then gets a hold of her grandma and sends grandma to the ER. We switch over to Cody, and Cody is angsting about things changing. Quote, "You stand in front of me pretending to be solid, but you are nothing more than smoke and mirrors. You said you'd never leave, that you would care for us forever. But now you claim that you cannot stay, that you have been called away. When you go, who will I turn to then? When you go, who will I turn to when it all crashes down? Tell me, then tell me, how I can believe in anyone again if your promises have all been lies." As someone currently having an existential crisis at the time of reading this, it doesn't really do anything for me. Just, it feels over dramatic, but I'm trying to imagine a teenager responding to this and going, that is literally me. Anyway, everything is tense with a medical thing going on with Jack that no one will tell him about, yet everything is also very melancholy. Then immediately we switch over to Cody's ex-girlfriend, seeing him and Ronnie at school and getting upset at seeing them in the quad together. The jumps between the different things in this book are very bizarre, because again, it's just going from like dramatic to dramatic, and then sometimes it's just like random with very little context for anything. He has sex with Ronnie and thinks about how she's the hottest thing in the world, is amazed that they even had sex since her brother is a linebacker and a bouncer at a local club. And again, we get more siblings being involved in each other's sex lives, as Vince tells Cody that he's glad that Ronnie has a man like him in her life, and hopefully he will keep her straight. He says, "Keep plowing them fields, my brother. Keep Ronnie on the straight and narrow by plowing that field." BT dubs, Ronnie's brother not only beats people as a bouncer, but he also does like all of the drugs. Cody is on Vince's good side and is playing poker with all of these druggies, doesn't know how he got there, and figures it might be because he deals them some drugs, and he doesn't know anything about poker at all, but don't worry, he's gonna pick up on it so fast that he gets addicted to gambling. Then he returns home to his dad being passed out in a chair at home. He wakes him up and is upset that his dad is not dead yet. Did we suddenly switch to Cody hating his father when Jack is supposed to be cancerous? That's another thing, because there are 5 different characters, and it feels like the feelings the characters have for their parents or their families change throughout, because like obviously you've got with Seth, he says that his mother supported his arts but would hate that he's gay, but later he's like, but mom loved me for everything and she'd support that I'm gay. Here you have him caring about his dad Jack when he possibly has cancer and wanting to take care of everyone, but then he also gets home and sees his dad in a chair passed out and then wakes him up and is like, shit, he's not dead yet. Why isn't he dead? That doesn't make any sense. You've got Eden's parents that go from an extreme of not just being a pastor, but because she's sleeping with her boyfriend, they accuse her of being possessed. And then you've got Whitney's parents who, like, mom favors the older sister, but she says that her dad loves her and buys her stuff and she prefers her dad, but then is also completely absent from her life. So it really doesn't feel consistent, and it just feels convenient in order to make the lives of these teenagers worse to hurt the reader. Anyway, after making sure that dad's not dead, he's celebrating how his girlfriend gets horny when she smokes, and she smokes a lot. So he says, quote, "Boo friggin' ya." And while he's consoling Jack, his brother Corey comes in wasted, and now Cody is dealing with both of them. This then moves to Cody playing poker and smoking pot, and then the dude that he's playing with wins, and this sentence comes out like it's written by a mom, quote, "My head is a tilt-a-whirl with substance abuse, but more because of finishing off the evening as a winner. I won poker, and I'm about to win at something even better," which is him and Ronnie scuttling off to do the do. Switching back over to Eden, it's Easter Sunday and boyfriend Andrew is at church. Mom is fishing for information from her daughter, and dad is trying to convert Andrew into being more Pentecostal by being cordial with him. She's thinking about how Andrew is her one true love and God picked him for her. Why does her family think that it's wrong when Andrew's family doesn't? And she's obsessed with giving Andrew her virginity as she sits in church. BT dubs. This week is spring break, a normal time to lose your virginity, and normal, not defined by her abnormal parents, but normal people. That's what she says. During this time in spring break is when she's planning to swipe that V card, and her sister gets rushed to the hospital for bad allergies, and while Eden has an excuse to be away. She feels bad about lying to her parents about where she's going to be, but she still goes anyway. Then they go to his room and have sex where she feels like it's scary, and then it's magical. Switch over to Seth, who is lamenting about how Loren is going to New York in 3 weeks. Quote, "Nothing's right. Not when you know that someone you love must leave too soon. The thought of losing a friend stings. The pain of losing a parent revisits you. The insanity of losing someone who has become your very heart slices you right in two. You can't eat, can't sleep, can't concentrate on simple things. All you can do is wonder how you'll live without the necessary beat inside of your chest. The weight of dread takes your breath away." And Seth now has become sexually aggressive and abusive in his relationship with Loren, saying that he wants to punish him and hurt him in response for the way that Loren has already started hurting him by going away. Loren isn't angry about this, but says, "I love you." And Seth is like, "Why did I have to meet you at all? What am I going to do without you?" as he has aggressive, painful sex with Loren. Then Loren asks Seth to go out for food, and he agrees. Loren lives in a gay neighborhood, it seems, because Seth is saying how all of the people are pretty much clockable as gay, and I guess that no one here cares that Seth looks like a school kid because nobody is saying anything about them going around. He says that they used to go out more often, but then as their relationship became like deeper and deeper physical, they had more difficult and different and extreme types of sex as they could to try a variety of things. Loren invites Seth then to go to a club that tonight it's 18 plus. However, where tonight it's 18 plus if you have a sponsor who is over 21. However, they don't check your IDs anyway if you have a sponsor. So despite the fact that Seth is 15, he gets into the club because Loren is a sponsor and the club doesn't really care about underage kids going in there. The book then explains, quote, "Kentucky is notoriously lax on such things. It hasn't been all that long since they raised the drinking age to 21, and they don't very often bust bars for serving minors. Still, I wouldn't stand right in front of the guy sipping bourbon. He might decide to get nasty." Seth's watching the interaction in a bar as Loren gets some drinks. He watches someone storm out and thinks about how he knows nothing about Loren and also wonders if Loren would cooperate with him if he used coercion to get him into sex. I don't know why he's thinking, I wonder if I can coerce him, because clearly Loren is willingly having sex with him, so why? Loren then comes back with a couple of bourbons, one for both of them. They then watch a guy who he describes as a work of art come in and flirt with an old man termed as an old faggot by the book. Loren explains what a sugar daddy is to Seth, and Seth is like, "I could never have sex with a guy like that, not even for money, because that man is so old and so disgusting that you know where this book is going to go." And Loren is like, "Sure, never say never, sweetie, because you'd be surprised at yourself." That's called foreshadowing. Switch over to Whitney, and her sister is back from spring break. She tells about how much she hates her mom and her sister and how stupid her mom is and how stupid their mom is that her sister gets her to buy things. She refuses to go out to lunch with her mom and her sister and calls her mom a bitch again. Then she calls Lucas over once they leave. She wants to insult Lucas for being a little pansy since he shows hesitation and he doesn't want to get caught like the last time that they were making out. Maybe that has to do with the faces in the window, that they were almost caught making out. Lucas keeps her waiting for 2 hours while she's getting into special panties. It's also kind of insane that he's so hesitant to go and meet her to get caught when he's also like, look, we're going to find out that he's only with her because he wants to take her V card. Like, that's it. This is such a weird setup for that. Just go with me. Okay, so he is only here for her V card. He's been playing the long game, dating her, making out with her for a long time, just to get the V card while he's got a girlfriend. And this is what he does. So she's like, hey, why don't you come over? My family's out. And he makes her wait for 2 hours. When he gets there, it took him longer because he was buying cocaine. Again, multiple characters in this book have all of these drugs, and the way that it's spliced is not helping the story. It's repetitive. Why does he need cocaine to take her virginity? She is waiting and willing. What are you doing? It also feels like such a waste of time when he doesn't care about her. Why is he getting her cocaine? He doesn't have to convince her. From a character perspective, answer me, what is he doing? She's never done drugs before, but goes along with it because she doesn't want to let Lucas down. Then Lucas takes her in the other room and has sex with her, and then she slows him down at first, and then he just does it, and then it's over. She's conflicted on whether it's good or bad, but doesn't want to ask him if it was good because she doesn't want him to say that it was bad because that'll affect how she feels about herself. She's waiting for him to say something after she says, I love you, but he only says, you should probably get dressed and like wash your sheets because there's blood all over the sheets. And she's like, how can he not know that a girl bleeds the first time? Switch over to Ginger. Her brother Sandy is currently in a coma. Mother Iris isn't helping. Grandma is barely helping, though at least she's cooking food. Her sister Marianne is also not helping. So it's all falling onto Ginger, apparently, beyond paying the bills and not talking to anyone anymore. She talks about how her mom has got a new boyfriend. It reminds her of this time when she was 10 years old, and her mother was a 26-year-old prostitute who had a customer who was a minor, who then violently raped Ginger after paying her mother for the time together. He then threatened Ginger that if she told anyone what happened, he would rape her sister. Then she laments how Iris lives in La La Land and never actually deals with reality or the drama surrounding them. Ginger bitterly laughs at how this is all playing out. She laughs at her mom's new boyfriend and he gets offended at her laughing at him. She tells him that I don't answer to freaking you, shut up. And he gets up to beat her. Iris calls her daughter some dumb kid and tells her boyfriend not to listen to her. And Ginger calls her mom a whore and runs out of the house to go and find her friend Alex. Alex comforts Ginger, says that men are all worse than dogs because at least dogs are cute and only get up in a girl's business if the bitch is in heat. And then the two of them kiss. Then Alex brings Ginger a spiked Coke while asking her if she's ever thought about maybe running away. Ginger says that she can't because she has to take care of her siblings. Then she returns to her home and makes dinner and hears that her brother is going to be okay. We switch over to Cody and everything sucks. Mom is going to church again because Jack is dying and she's praying for a miracle. Cody is throwing himself into substance abuse and poker to avoid his feelings. He's doing online gambling too. He's losing, but he can't stop himself from playing. He keeps reasoning with himself that he's going to keep going until he wins. And then he's like, well, I got to recover everything that I lost. Once he wins, Ronnie messages him asking why he hasn't come over yet, and he lies to her about where he is, hoping that she won't get mad. She forgives him for being late and invites him over anyway. Speeding to go to his girlfriend's house, he almost runs into his brother Corey. Corey climbs into the car, beat to a pulp, and tells Cody to step on it. He does. A cop is trailing behind them, but more or less overlooks the car, and it's not actually a problem. Cody is like, what the frick did you do? As he drives past Ronnie's house, the light in her room is on. He knows that she's waiting for him, but now he's got his bloody brother in the car, so we can't actually stop to go and see her. Turns out that Corey broke into a house saying that they need the money because Jack is not going to be around much longer, and then how are they going to pay the bills because mom is useless? And so he broke into a house and got punched in the face. Cody is now forming a plan of how he's going to take care of the family, and I bet it's gambling, as he says that he just needs an investment capital. Switch over to Eden. Since having sex with her boyfriend 6 months ago, she's become absolutely obsessed with him, saying that she's dropped into a pit of obsession. Quote, whether or not God will forgive me remains to be seen, but I have absolutely no clue how I could unobsess myself if Andrew ever decided that he didn't want to be in my life. So far, though, Andrew seems every bit as obsessed with me as I am with him. We have learned a lot about each other, how to touch, where to kiss, when to let go. Before this month, I didn't really believe that I was his first, but I was. Am. I have taught him as much as he has taught me, all through mutual experimentation. Mad sex scientists, that's us. There have been clumsy moments, yes, but they are rare, few. The worst was when it suddenly came to us that swept downstream by the flood of desire, we hadn't used protection the first time. But either I'm sterile or the timing was right, because 3 days later I started my period. We've been careful ever since. I wished I could go on the pill, but I know for certain that if I showed my face at Planned Parenthood, word would go back to my parents. A trip to the pharmacy would yield the same results, meaning birth control, condoms, not the best, but better than nothing, is up to Andrew. I like how it says, so they're dating, they're made for each other, they've learned so much about each other, and all that it actually highlights that they've learned about each other is how to have sex with one another. There's no emotion, there's no learning about each other's backgrounds, there's no growing into each other as a relationship. It's literally just getting each other off is what it's boiled down to. Then when we're seeing Andrew again today, she says that she's going to a friend's house, which she does, and she tells her friend about her new boyfriend, though not everything about who he is. Then she has Andrew pick her up from the house, but around the corner so that her friend doesn't see the car, doesn't see Andrew, doesn't know who he is. However, the sister of that friend sees the car, sees Eden, and watches them drive off. She gets home after having an afternoon of sex with Andrew, and her parents are waiting for her in the living room. They confront her about who she was with. She upsets them further. They call her a trollop. She laughs in their face and then questions why they won't let her fall in love. And the parents disagree that it's not love, it's lust, and that boy wants your innocence. Mom then punches her in the face for no reason, which seems really random. Are we going to go with, you're possessed, you need to stop talking back at me, we are actually abusive? Because, like, this is all over the place to just load it on with all of the extremes and no reason to it. Eden is obviously upset by getting punched in the face and it ends up grounded. The parents say that they're going to take care of Andrew, and I was figuring that this would come back with the parents reporting Andrew for statutory rape and then saying that he was the one that punched her in the face. But this actually doesn't turn into anything. The punch in the face was nothing, but just to make her situation extreme for no discernible reason, but to make it extreme and dramatic. She spends the whole morning with Andrew while her parents are at church, and Andrew begs Eden to behave for her parents so they don't beat her again. Maybe they should have done this on the phone. When she gets home, her mother is waiting with a seat facing the door and knows where she has been. Mom makes tea to talk to her daughter about Andrew and then exclaims that the only way that this happened is because she is possessed by demons. And if you guess that the tea is drugged, you're right. They just drugged their daughter. Then we switch over to Seth, and Seth first complains about how useless Mother's Day is because his mother is dead and it's freaking stupid. Then he's like, why isn't Hallmark making a breakup day? And then he goes to Lorraine's house to find that he is gone, and there is a note on the bed saying that he left this way because he was too scared to say goodbye in person. Also, he says that the apartment is paid off to the end of the month. It's a fully furnished apartment. You can use it as you like, whenever you like, for the rest of the time that it is available. He'll mail him something when he is settled. Seth cries, realizing that Lorraine is probably gone forever and is never coming back. He is sure of it from this letter. So you know what time it is? It's time for alcohol, baby! Who cares about the future? There is no future. Lorraine was the future, and the future is gone. Drinks ahead. Yeah, boy. Since there's no alcohol in the house, though, because Lorraine did not leave alcohol in the house for his boy toy, he's going to go to the club that Lorraine showed him, for the you can be let in with a sponsor. Apparently that was not a special night. That's all the time. And he goes looking for some crusty queen to sponsor his entry. He sees the old guy who stormed out the first time that he was there with Lorraine and asks that guy if he'll take him inside. The two of them get sloshed. The old man tells Seth to only think for himself and to live for himself, because if you live for other people, if you love other people, it's just a scam. Nobody cares about you, so live for yourself. Then, when they leave, he invites Seth to come to his place because he is in no condition to drive. Once there, the old man explains that he's got guest toothbrushes in the bathroom, all kinds of guest toiletries, here's some silk pajamas, now why don't you come lay with me in bed, right after we're talking about only taking care of yourself. So clearly this man just sees Seth as an object to be used. Kind of hypocritical for Carl later to get mad at Seth for having an affair because he told Seth to live for himself, and obviously Seth later does live for himself, and Carl gets mad, but we'll get there. We switch over then to Whitney, with Lucas now avoiding her. Whitney keeps making excuses as to why Lucas might be avoiding her, but she knows that it started happening after he took her virginity. Are we going to get any backlash for the cocaine usage? No, we're not. There is no relapsing. There is no obsession with getting more drugs. There is nothing. It could have been not used there because it literally did nothing for her character to include cocaine at that time, and it made no sense for Lucas to use cocaine when she was literally like, psst, Lucas, come over and take my virginity. Like, explain to me that. It feels like such a waste of money. At school, some random girl named Skylar, who she is not friends with and thinks is a bitch, approaches and asks, so are you going to Lucas's party? And Whitney is like, what party? And she's like, oh, so your breakup was legit then, because you don't even know that Lucas is throwing a party, right? And Whitney is like, what the frick? How does this bitch know things that I don't know? Looks like I'm going to that freaking party. Whitney is mad at Lucas because Lucas is now making her feel like her mom and her sister make her feel, which is insufficient, worthless, lesser than others, not good enough no matter what she does. And we get, quote, I say none of this to Paige, of course. She's thrilled to be going to the party with real, live guys and probable substance abuse. Why spoil her fairy tale? Again, feeling like a bit of mom writing. They get to the party and it's huge, and Whitney knows that she's been broken up with now. She gets high while looking for her boyfriend throughout the house, and in the middle of the crowd, Lucas is banging that girl from school against a counter or something. She approaches and is like, what the frick, Lucas? And Lucas asks Skylar if he can go talk to Whitney alone. So they go upstairs to his room, and that's where he tells Whitney, hey, so BT dubs, I don't like you. I just heard that you were a virgin and I wanted to pop your cherry, and now that I've done that, I don't freaking care. Goodbye. Obviously, she's upset. She storms out of the room, goes to look for her friend. Her friend is trying to hook up with guys, doesn't care about her, obviously, because then Whitney is like, fine, I won't bother you. I'll find some other way home. Whatever. So then she goes outside of the house, sits down, opens her wallet, takes out that agent's card, you know, the guy that she hasn't talked to at all, period, randomly met at the mall, not her parents, not other friends, because apparently all of her other friends are here, calls this absolute rando to come and pick her up at this teenager's party. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll be right there in a jiffy. As if this is not the most suspicious thing I have ever seen in my life. Switch over to Ginger, and she's having a bad day at school after failing a test. Her gym teacher was dogging on her for running too slow, and some random guy was mocking her for putting blue in her hair. She gets home, and it's empty. Everyone is gone. Mom has taken the kids somewhere, and there is some random guy in there waiting for her. Ginger gets the vibes that something is not right, but still goes inside and goes into the kitchen, and the guy is like, hey, bring me a beer. And she's like, yeah, okay. Maybe if I play nice, I can just sneak back out of here. But obviously she gets to the fridge and he's behind her, and then he rapes her. And at some point she starts laughing, realizing that this is just like the other time that her mom sold her when she was 10 years old. Because apparently between that first time she mentioned when she was 10 and then this time, her mother only pimped her twice, counting this. I'm like, how does your mom only pimp you twice when she clearly did not care about pimping you when you were 10 years old? How did it never happen again? I don't understand why it's now randomly happening at what, like 16, 17 years old? I think she's 16. After the assault, Ginger goes and cleans up in the shower. She says that she's not going to call the cops because who would believe a mother pimped out their child anyway? She packs a bag and leaves, saying that grandma can take care of everything. She goes to Alex's house, tells Alex what happened, and the two of them plan to run away to Las Vegas together. She checks on her family one last time, finds out that Sandy is still in the hospital. He's going to stay overnight, so she's not going to be able to see him. Grandma's making dinner. She steals all of the money from her mother's underwear drawer and leaves a note saying that she knows what her mother did and she is taking the money. Then she returns to Alex. It turns out that Alex's guardian has also been raping her, so she is ready to bounce the frick out of there, obviously. bad parents. And then they get onto a bus to get out of town, and they kiss, and they're happy, and they exchange I love yous. Gonna switch over now to Cody. Jack has died. Ronnie has come over. They have sex and says it feels like love for the first time. Corey interrupts them later. Corey interrupts the sex later, where the two of them then sit with their mother and they mourn, and he takes his mom to bed, sees all of the bills piling up because of the funeral and the hospital and just life. And he goes to his room and thinks about how he'll pay for all of this stuff, since his mom apparently doesn't have a job, can't get a job, is completely useless. And now it's up to these literal children to pay the bills for mom. He takes Jack's credit cards and all of Jack's bank cards so that he can start gambling online, and is losing, racking up debt, winning some, continuing. He's lost his job at GameStop, but doesn't really seem to care to get another one. He is sure that he will win eventually, and it'll be worth it in the end, so he just keeps gambling. Apparently, mom is so out of it that she doesn't notice the bank cards or the credit cards missing or the charges on them. Not yet, anyway. And we switch over to Eden. So she was drugged with that tea by her mother and then sent to a religious camp to be exorcised by someone that her dad went to school with. She's being starved mostly and preached at, and she worries if Andrew even knows where she is or if he's been arrested. Then one of the workers there is hitting on her hardcore. If she behaves, if she behaves and can keep a secret, the abuse that he's about to do to her, then he can get her something nice. And he shows her this by feeding her strawberries. Quote, Jerome isn't quite finished. He takes my hand, caresses it gently before placing the other 2 berries in my palm. If you're really good at keeping secrets. His eyes bore into mine, something feral pacing there. We could have a little fun. If you be good to me, I'll be good to you. Strawberries are just the beginning. Meat, cheese, chocolate, maybe even some shampoo to use instead of that vile soap. He touches my hair. I bet it's pretty when it's clean. I bet it smells like rain. Here now. What did I say? Don't cry. A recollection clutches my throat, chokes. It's Andrew's voice, servicing, like a creature, dead and bloated from a deep sea. Smells like rain. Pain throbs. No, not pain. Not even agony. Something there is no words for. Something that I can't fight. Can't fight. Can't. All I can think to do is say, sorry. She lets him touch her, as she believes her only way out of here is to let her seduce him until he'll be pliable in her hands. Once she sees that he's interested, she cuts him off by saying, look, I let you touch my breasts, but that's all that strawberries are good for. Apparently, both of her parents already think that every single woman on the planet has a whore inside of them. That's what their religion says, is that all women are whores, and believe that even Eden is a whore. And so I don't know what you think you're going to do if just women are whores. But this is so extreme, it's laughable. We go into Eden saying that some scholars think that Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute, but the woman that Jesus loved and maybe even was his wife. She says that being with Andrew didn't make her a whore, but sending her to a camp might do that and make her lose everything else about her. She meets with this man in charge in the chapel and asks what she might do to get home. He tells her that there is no going home. You're a bad influence and you're gonna make your parents look bad, so get used to living here. After hearing that, she's like, cool. I guess I'm whoring myself out to get the frick out of here. Switch over to Seth. He has now graduated. He feels like he has no future or purpose now since Loren is gone. And he's meant to be a hick just like his old man. So he goes to meet the old man Carl from the club, and they bang. He says it's for lust, but also it's because the old guy gives him gifts, and I guess that's fine. I was going to say I'm pretty sure that Seth could have gotten someone younger if he really wanted to, but he just likes how easy Carl is, and he likes getting free stuff. He's really not thinking that he's got to try all that much. Also, Carl's probably a safer bet since Carl isn't going to result in a broken heart, and it seems like Seth is avoiding emotional connections. Seth gets home one day, and his dad grabs him and shows him this opened letter from New York that's sitting on the counter. He says, I opened that letter because it was postmarked New York, and I thought it was from a college, despite it not having any college insignia on it. And so then this forces Seth to come out to his dad. His dad says mom would have been upset about this, and now Seth is changing his tune, saying that mom would not have been upset about this. Okay, changing what was said at the beginning of the book where it said she was raised Catholic, so she would have been against it. Dad says that being gay is a sin and you won't be gay in this house. He was like, I swear I thought you would have found the right girl at some point, but if this is how you're going to be, then you need to get the frick out of my house. And then Seth is like, but I have no money. Where will I go? And so even though Dad is so brutal and so mean that he's kicking Seth out of the house, he reaches into his wallet and throws 40 bucks at him. That's all of the money he has in his wallet. So he still gives Seth money while kicking him out of the house heartlessly. I don't really understand that. It didn't make a difference because Seth just goes to old man Carl and then starts living with old man Carl. And old man Carl is like, hey, I just got a business deal in Las Vegas. So Seth starts wondering, well, I got nothing left in this town. I wonder if I can convince old man Carl to take me to Las Vegas with him where I can start over and do things. Switch over to Whitney. After the agent guy picked her up at the party, they get into this whirlwind romance where they fall for each other super fast. And he said that he's only visiting the area for closing his mother's estate out now that she's passed, and that he actually lives in New York. They haven't had sex yet, but he makes her feel special. And then they go clothes shopping so that they can do this very special photo shoot for her. They get white clothes, and it said it's going to be a celebration of virginity, and they'll send the pictures to her ex-boyfriend to rub it in his face. This girl is very clearly vulnerable and gullible and highly emotional. Quote, we haven't made love yet. He says that he wants me to be very, very sure that I want to because he treasures me more than just my body. I'm pretty sure that I'm ready, but that isn't quite very, very sure. Still, maybe today will be the day. Yes or no? First, he's going to take some pics of me. I want to show you just how beautiful you are, he said. Then he took me shopping for what he wants me to wear, a long flowing skirt and gauzy off-the-shoulders blouse, both white. A celebration of virginity was his explanation. We'll send the pictures to your old boyfriend. He meant that last part, too. It's an incredible day, 70 degrees, non-intrusive breeze, just enough to rile your hair, carry scents of summer blossoms. I feel pretty, all decked out in white, with just enough makeup to enhance my features, not to make them obvious as per Bryn's request. Virginal. I mean, clearly the author did a good job here as I read this and go, girl, this is stranger danger. How dumb are you? Please, please, please. It also immediately felt to me like this guy was taking pictures of her to put on a website to sell her as a prostitute for. He gets her to take off her panties and her underwear of all kinds, and then takes pictures of her just kind of hiding the body parts while taking pictures. Then they have sex on the beach after the photo shoot. He's like, oh my gosh, oh darn it, I would love to spend all summer with you, but I've actually got other jobs lined up in Las Vegas that I'm not going to be able to spend the entire summer with you like I would have liked. Oh gosh darn it, oh gosh darn. He then takes Whitney home where her mother berates her, and Whitney calls Bryn back and says, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to Vegas with you. I don't care how we work this out, but we are just going to freaking do it, and I'm going to go with you. Oh yeah, by the way, before they had sex, before they actually went to the beach to take pictures, he also gave her Valium before the shoot. So there's that. This is also one of those areas where apparently her dad doesn't notice anything. They just kind of skip over how she skips out of town. I mean, why bother developing anything when you can just trauma dump in verse again and again and again? And we switch over to Ginger. Ginger and Alex get to Las Vegas, and they're talking about how it's Sin City and how people come here to sin, and you can never wash the splotches off of you that you get in this place. There, Alex calls up someone named Lydia, who said that she'd give them a place to stay if she was ever in the area. But shortly after being welcomed in, Lydia starts telling the girls that they can't stay there for free and they need to get to work. She's also like, I know that you guys are underage, but I can get you a job at a strip club that they're not going to card you at. So how about that? The girls don't put up much of a fight, and then quickly they start stripping together. Quote, her boobs are bigger, though, and really beautiful. I swear, I never knew I leaned towards girls until I met Alex. Guess I never let myself lean anyway at all. Didn't dare get close to anyone, male or female, but Alex and I are tight. I love her heart, her brains, her body. The men that we perform for, like when we dance with each other, breast to breast or belly to ass, tan skin against pale ebony hair on a black-streaked blonde, fingers touching hidden places that we won't let clients touch. Powerful. That's how I feel, seeing how helpless we make them. I so enjoy reducing them to masturbation. It's like they are masturbating for me, and I can control how they come by how I move my body, what I let them see. It's a game, and I win every time. Then they're working hard to save money and they get their own place. They talk about how the dicks stay in the pants when there's mostly a crowd in the room, though not always. They do bachelor parties sometimes where they also give oral to each other, though they don't do anything with the guys. Then in a cab ride on the way back from the bachelor party, they say, no offense, Len, to the driver, but dudes are disgusting. And I just gotta ask, would you beat off in front of your bros? That feels like a special kind of person. They get a different job to do together, where it's an old man who forces Alex to give him a hand job and she steals his wallet afterwards. Then they drink and go to bed, but Ginger feels lonely because now that their job is sex, there's a lot less intimacy between the two of them and she feels super lonely. Even when she asks Alex, hey, can I hold you? Alex kind of treats her like she's a nuisance. Switch over to Cody, who is losing all of his bets, can't afford anything, steals money from his mom. She can't get a job because she says that nobody is hiring anybody over 50 unless it's Walmart or McDonald's. And apparently she's just saying no to both of those. I don't know what her skill set is, but I cannot believe that that is true. I don't know what her skill set is, but unless she has zero skills whatsoever, I can't really believe that's true. Because I watched my own mother get jobs after a 22-year-old marriage as a stay-at-home wife, and all of the complications of her background. And so I have a hard time believing this with as little information as it has. It's just like, believe me, everything sucks and it's up to the children to correct for their parents. And I can't believe it this hard. Especially since we have basically zero characterization on the mother at this point, other than apparently she cares, but not enough to actually get a job or take care of the kids. And so Cody has to do everything. She doesn't even know that her other son is out causing ruckus, had a bloody nose. She's not paying attention to anything, apparently. Cody then pawns off some of the stuff in the house to pay the bills. He's then walking around looking at prostitutes with deals that are going down, spots a transgender one saying that, you know what? Whatever dings your dong. People are going to be surprised at what's in them panties, and then thinks about how he wants to bang his girlfriend. He buys his girlfriend a $50 set of underwear, then goes to use the rest of that pawn money on a bet. He goes home and uses his mom's bank card to do online betting and mostly loses. Mom's locked in her room. They get a phone call from the cops saying that Corey has been arrested for assaulting a woman while robbing her house. Then we switch over to Eden again, who is thinking about what she's going to have to do and praying that God will forgive her. It feels like so many of these books rely on exploitation content like this, quote, does not come easy. Jerome is in fact maneuverable and the key to the lock. He comes to me late at night, tells me to do things that I've never even imagined, things that I have saved for Andrew. The first time will stay with me, a scar on my heart. The door opened, and though I knew what that meant, I couldn't believe that the supposed man of God would draw back the sheets, pull up my shift, and stand staring. Forgive me, he whispered, and he meant that, even as he stripped, lowering his ghostly white nakedness over me. I swallowed the building scream, opened my legs, wept as he plunged inside. Choked on his Listerine-flavored tongue, wielded like a weapon. His kiss was, in fact, harder to accept. Sex is sex. A kiss means love. After he left, I cried and cried, called into the night, Andrew, where are you? No answer came then, or yet. The next morning, Jerome brought in a hot biscuit with butter and honey. Nothing ever has tasted so good. He came back that night. Afterward, I cried and cried, screamed into the night, Andrew, save me. But he didn't. Hasn't yet. The next morning, Jerome brought a perfect peach. Another small plus. Jerome always uses condoms. That little detail has saved me more than a badly timed pregnancy. It has probably saved my sanity. Almost worse than the thought of having a baby is the nightmare idea of his leftovers. Quote, after a few weeks, the straight sex has become routine, something I can shut myself off from. But now Jerome wants other things. Let me watch you touch yourself. Creepy things. Did you know guys like to use vibrators too? Like this. Downright disgusting things. Your period, I like the taste of blood. How I wish that I could say no. But even if I thought that he'd leave me alone. Saying yes is how I convinced him to make father believe that I am fit for small freedoms. Like working in the yard, pulling weeds and picking vegetables. Out here, beyond the confines of my room, I understand that there is no way to leave the place on foot. I can see forever across the playa, and the road is a straight, stretched wound. I can tell cars are coming long before they arrive by dust mushrooms sprouting into the hot blue Nevada sky. Hot, working outside. Even mid-morning, sweat pools in my armpits and beads my skin, attracting bugs and dirt. But anything is better than slow suffocation in the tomb of my room. I observe people come and go, memorize schedules, learn where cars are parked, some left unlocked. Ironically, Jerome is one of the worst about leaving his keys under the floor mat. I file that away. Plan A has gone awry. Maybe it'll come in handy with Plan B. With how far this just kept going, I was like, it feels like a joke. I don't know how this is supposed to really click with, oh, that's literally me. I can't believe somebody was in my situation of being in this. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but this is such an obscure, over-the-top situation in every single way. Quote, but a major flaw in that strategy surfaced. Oh, I have played on Jerome's sympathy. Talked about home, church, Papa. Told him Mama is crazy, something he understands. Jerome inherited his own not rightness from the XX chromosome side of his family. My mother used to lock my brother and me in a closet, he told me. Then she'd sit outside the door and listen. Interesting enough, this book also seems to hate mothers and motherhood because everybody's mother sucks. Everybody's mother is useless. Though to be fair, every parent in this book also sucks. So I guess like there is that, but still likes the dads better because Whitney's dad buys her stuff. She likes dad better. Jack wasn't terrible, though at some point he was like, I hope that dad is dead. Then he wasn't. But this book does also demonize men. So it's a double demonization of like literally everybody all the time. Everybody sucks. That's what it is. Quote, Plan C means courting Jerome's affection, pretending to enjoy his deviant sex. Tonight that means letting him call me mommy as he sits on my lap and nurses. I stroke his hair as a mom would, dig deep inside for the words, Mommy loves you, Jerome. Then that excites him, as I guessed it would. I love you too, Mommy. See how much? Oh, Andrew, even if you do find me, how could you ever love me again after this? I hold stubbornly to the dreams that he will as Jerome turns his belly to Mommy's. Love or no, Jerome wants to punish Mommy. The sex is rough, but it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as the pretense. And it's even faster than usual. When he finishes, I lay my head on his knobby chest. Too bad you have to go. It would be nice to sleep together all night. While she's cradling him and being his mommy, she asks Jerome if he wants to escape with her. And he says, no, that would be wrong. And she's like, escaping would be no more wrong than what we're doing right now. It's totally fine. And he thinks about it. The next day, she's complimented by the father for her hard work on the ranch. And she's getting this special treatment for a bit, probably because Jerome has put in special words for her. She is concerned that perhaps Jerome is turned on her or mad at her because he is not at the ranch that day. It turns out that he just had a couple of days off and he was thinking things over as well. She's concerned if Andrew is actually out there waiting for her to return. Before they do anything though, there's more sex because that's what Jerome wants. How long could they legitimately keep her here was my question, because we don't have a plan for anything. Again, what is world building? What is actual setting? What is actual story? Sometimes I wonder with some of these books. I don't even know what the logistics of this place are. Kids are obviously leaving. How have no parents come back? How have no cops come back yet? I know a lot of people don't share their problems. I don't understand how this place is in operation like this. There is no excuse. It just wants you to believe that this is how it is and then just take it as it is instead of asking questions. And this ends with the sex happening and she's hoping to get out. Then we switch over to Seth. He is now in Vegas with Carl. He got Carl to agree to take him to Las Vegas by agreeing to be his sugar baby and showing how much he will devote to that by shagging him real good. And Carl wanted to raw dog it. So that was another way that he proved how serious he was. I would not say that Seth trusts Carl. Carl is just a tool, just as Seth is kind of a tool. And he's like, YOLO. Better to be a sugar baby than to be homeless. Once he's all settled into Las Vegas, he's living in a high rise. He's living a really good life in a nice place. However, quote, one big problem is boredom. Back home, I was never bored. Too much work to do. And when I was done, I could go into town, hang out with friends, play pool or dance or spread gossip. But here, I have no car. Wouldn't know where to drive to if I did. I can only work out so much. Lying by the pool is a sure path to skin cancer. TV is a brain-sucking machine. I need someone to talk to when Carl is busy playing Mr. Real Estate Developer. So I started spending too much time online making virtual friends. Fantasy connections are better than no outside connections at all. I even found a chat room called Men Kept by Men. My kind of room. So he's living a high life as a sugar baby and is just bored. No hobbies. I guess what actually should have happened is he became a political opiner, because that's what you do. He goes in on talking about all of the men that show up in some of these forums, describing them as mostly married guys that he finds on these websites and judging them. This launches into Seth remembering that when he was molested by a priest when he was an altar boy, because of course, quote, or where that first hug might lead. The next time we were alone together, Father Howard was bolder. His hug lasted longer, and he massaged my shoulders. "You're such a good-looking boy," he said. "I bet the girls think so, too." He paused. But then, when I didn't respond, he tried. "Other boys?" My eyes went wide. I started to deny, but the adolescent tugs I'd felt had all been towards boys. I couldn't lie to the priest. I stared at the floor. He tilted my chin, so I had to look at his eyes. "It's okay, Seth. You're beautiful, just the way God made you." His lips, warm and soft, brushed against my forehead. I was scared, thrilled, amazed at his acceptance of sin born inside of me. Father Howard left things there that time. He says that he trusted the priest, who then took advantage of him, but also liked the priest because it made him feel like he wasn't actually damned, since the priest accepted him for who he was as gay. He also heard about pedo priests, but didn't actually associate that with the priest Howard, because he liked priest Howard. Back to the current time, he says that the chatter says he's a whore for what he's doing with Carl, but that's okay because he's not judging, since this chatter is also a whore for some guy. He asks how this is any different than marriage of convenience, before thinking about what he should do to prep in case Carl dies, because he'll be left on his own with no assurances if Carl passes. Switch over to Whitney, and she's in Las Vegas now. Bryn is taking her photos naked. It looks like we're getting a little bit of extra charges for some CP distribution going on. Whitney is thinking about how her mom might find these pics one day, and maybe her mom will be jealous of her body. And now Bryn is convincing Whitney to do heroin just out of nowhere. This gets her to shoot a sex tape with him. Then he moves into getting her hooked on more and more drugs, doing them multiple times a week, and now she's doing camming work as well. This feels like this is where it started to feel very much like an after-school special, because it's like you're gonna have sex with this random man, get into drugs, be trafficked, get into camming, and then probably die. Which she thinks about how if she wasn't here doing camming, she could be starting her junior year instead, and you bet she's getting pimped out by Bryn, and he manipulates her and gives her more drugs, kind of pulls her along, and also he still viciously rapes her in between her seeing customers and also doing drugs. Going over to Ginger, they finally got their own place after Lydia pushed them into outright prostitution, and Alex has been going for it. She doesn't care, while Ginger has been resisting. Ginger is saying how everything sucks and she's in a lot of pain, praying for a miscarriage to happen because she doesn't want the guy that her mom paid for her to have sex with to have gotten her pregnant. She also meets this cute girl in the laundry room who has dark eyes and assumes that that girl is a drug user. She goes back to her room where Alex isn't home yet. She then sees the heroin chick that was from the laundry room leading dudes into her room and wonders if everyone in Las Vegas is turning tricks. Alex comes home and also has been turning tricks, and Ginger doesn't want to do this, and it's getting kind of sussy of Alex's connections, since Alex said, "I know people if we go there," and pretty much got them immediately into the sex work. Going over to Cody, Cody needs money and hears about this girl named Lydia who can get him jobs doing sex for pay. He shows up and she says, "I'm going to get you jobs, but you're not going to be having sex with women. You're going to be having sex with dudes." Quote, "A man? No. What? Did I look gay or something? Sex with men? Not even $100 an hour was worth that. At least not then. So every one of your boys is gay? Because I'm like totally straight." Lydia shrugged. "No one is 100% hetero. We all are bi to varying degrees. It all comes down to necessity." Turned out the statement was accurate. Took about a week to see things her way. Then it speedruns him doing gay for pay, him vomiting after doing it the first time, and then just doing this job with this guy named Dan who looks like a model and is hung like a horse and wants to do it without a condom, of course. Quote, "He's built like a fucking bull. Holy crap, dude. I don't know. What's wrong, kid? Never done it with a real man before?" His voice falls, cold and heavy as hail. "You want me wrapped? Do it for me." He pushes me to my knees, comes around in front of me. My heart thuds in my chest. I open the foil pouch, remove the thin latex protection. "You ever seen a ramrod like Dan's?" I shake. I shake my head as I roll the condom down over it. "No, of course you haven't. Let's see how good you are." I close my eyes. Fight not to gag at the taste of lubricant, not choke on his thrusts against my throat. I think about Corey, locked up in juvie until the judge decides that he's been rehabilitated. As the guy rides him hard, he teases him about how hard Cody is, and Cody is disgusted with himself for being turned on by the gay sex and washes himself off in the shower for a very long time afterwards. Going over to Eden, she finally gets out of the compound with Jerome, loses him at a gas station by climbing into a random trucker's truck, saying that she is running away from an abusive boyfriend. He is actually a nice guy who drives her closer to a city, but partway has to leave her. He gives her money for lunch and asks for nothing in return. She cries at his kindness and then gets onto another trucker's car where the trucker does expect her to give him oral if she wants a ride. Going over to Seth, Carl is being controlling, tells Seth that he needs to work out so he doesn't get fat. Seth hates everything about living in Las Vegas and says that he has zero sense of control. He can't even control what he does with his day. He goes to the gym and sees this super hottie who is flirting with him, and he's sort of flirting back. The guy is teaching him how to use the gym equipment. He's having a good time with the gym bro when later Carl brings a guy home named Brett and forces Seth into a threesome. Switch over to Whitney, and Whitney is fighting withdrawals, hating Bryn for lying to her, but she still wants to be with him because she's still in love with him, even though he's got other girls, even though he's forcing her into prostitution, even though he brings her drugs. He's got her wrapped around his little finger. She says sometimes Bryn comes in and will reward her with treats and a beautiful sex in between her being pimped out. Quote, other men come. That sex is never beautiful. It is selfish, needful, fueled by sick desire to get off, get even, get over someone who has hurt them by symbolically impaling someone else. So Bryn's zombie girls stay stoned, out of their heads, messed up, closed-eyed. We can all be anywhere. Italy, France, Australia, Jupiter, hell. Doesn't even matter. As long as we're not here, as long as we can pretend that we're still pretty. Then she has a come to Jesus moment. Not a literal one, but no, she sees herself in the mirror and realizes that Bryn saw how naive and desperate for love she was and took advantage of her. Quote, he is a pimp, plain and simple, a fucking gorgeous, sweet pimp who I'd do anything for, including advertising my body for sale. Cheap. Bryn comes to have sex with her and she tells him that he doesn't have to use a condom because that's his special privilege with her. And she's been on the pill since she got to Vegas. Bryn says that he doesn't want to go condomless because he doesn't want to catch a disease from her. And this pisses Whitney off because she says customers always wear condoms without exception. So she's like, how dare you treat me like all of the customers treat me? And that totally kills the mood because she was in love with him. And now she's like, you know what? I don't want to have sex with you anymore. Still, he forces himself on her. She gets raped by the whatever this is, and she just kind of lays there waiting for him to be done as she imagines him as one of her normal Johns and thinks about how she could have been planning her sweet 16 by now with her dad paying for everything, and maybe her mom and her sister would be there and everything would be great, but here is where she lays. So her dad cares enough about her to do that, but not enough to track how she got away with this guy in the first place. The characterization of this book sucks. Look, you could make me believe it if you built a believable story. But the problem is this book never spent time buying in with the believableness. It just says kind of, trust me, bro, without building anything. Whitney is then dropped off to go and prostitute somewhere. The guy picks her up and is going home with her, asks if she needs help. The guy then starts touching her once they get to the house, pretending that he's going to be nice to her. He refuses to pay for her, then beating her, gets mad when she goes limp fish and doesn't fight her because the fight is something that he likes. They battle each other. The assault is interrupted at some point. The neighbor girl actually came in because the door was cracked open and she heard the commotion. And so then she came in and helped Whitney and then introduces herself as Ginger. Switch over to Ginger, who is going off on how people come to Vegas hoping to make it big. Quote, but lots of them wind up just like me, selling pieces on themselves, pieces that they can never get back. Quote, every time I run into Misty, a little more of her is gone. I can see it in her eyes. When you sell your body, you also sell pieces inside of you. Piece by piece, you sell your soul. Whitney offers Ginger some drugs and she turns them down, then vomits. Ginger tries to talk to Whitney, who looks like a kid to her, and Whitney is going in and out of awareness as she is so hyped on drugs. But also, she is super into Bryn still. Ginger wants to quit drinking because it makes her sick and more miserable than than otherwise, but it is also her coping mechanism. She wonders if her grandma would welcome her back or if she would be too disgusting to be welcomed back into the house. Now Ginger is talking about how Walt, the guy that raped her when she was 10 years old, was only the first of many, and now delves into how she has also become a prostitute. I can't help but feel that the way that this is written is especially gross, and it's literally just done for shock value. Quote, faceless. I figured out how to close off my brain when they did it to me, to withdraw into darkness, a little room inside of my head where I couldn't see them, couldn't smell their sweat, their stagnant breath, couldn't taste the tobacco coating their tongues or the beer tainting the spit that they left in their mouth, couldn't feel what was down between my legs, but now they revisit me. Is it because of what I'm doing? Because these nameless, faceless men watching me, even without them touching me, I feel dirty about what I do. Alex does even filthier things, but says that it all washes off with soap. I don't believe that. I think it all leaves stains. Indelible stains. I get what this is trying to do, but 630 pages of specifically this, where it's repeating itself over and over and over again with 5 different characters, it feels like just exploitation and shot content written in this form to showcase nothing but just how bad it is, to like hit the reader over the head. And as Ginger is waiting for Alex to come back from her last job, she's not answering her phone, and they have a bachelor party coming up. Once Alex gets back, she's actually beaten up, and she says that she was robbed after the guy had sex with her, and he took a couple $100. She says she doesn't want to do the bachelor party, and so Ginger agrees to go and do the bachelor party alone while Alex cleans herself up. Their life is a mess. Switching over to Cody, he doesn't know who he is anymore. He asks God to help him out, though he's like, am I even worthy of God's attention? His girlfriend wants to spend time with him, though he's not really making time for her, and he doesn't feel like having sex anymore because he's made sex his job, and he keeps having sex with dudes, and he's like, I just don't feel like it. He's not really going to school much anymore, and he's also not that interested. He makes excuses to get out of seeing Ronnie because he feels so bad about himself, and he is just waiting for Ronnie to dump him. Mom has finally noticed the online bets made by Cody and blames his brother, though I'm not really sure how she's blaming the brother when he said that Cody is waiting in juvenile hall. So like, these costs are still happening while he's in juvie. So don't worry about it. The book just says, trust me. Don't worry about world building. Don't worry about consistency. Just freaking trust me. There is absolutely no questioning of Cody whatsoever, where the money is coming from, how he's paying for all of the bills, how brother is using those credit cards to gamble when the brother is not out in the open. But I just reminded myself how much I hated this book at this point. Cody is thinking about Lydia telling him that everyone is at least a little bit bisexual. Cody is thinking about this bisexual comment because he can't scrub Big Dick Dan from his brain, even though he hasn't seen him in a while. Now he's in this place making some bets before he has to go to meet Misty somewhere for a threesome. But he calls his girlfriend first because since he's won big, he doesn't have to do as many prostitution jobs. So he might actually get to have sex with her. And he's feeling really good since he just won at betting. And so he's like, Ronnie, can I come and see you later? And she's like, hell yes. And so he is going to go to his threesome and then go and have sex with his girlfriend. It's so contrived. He gets down to the house where the threesome is going to happen, and he pops in. Misty is already in position. They're already getting down. They start getting it on when the door busts open with some random guy, Chris, who has never been mentioned before. It looks like there's some sort of shootout because next thing you know, he's not seeing anything, and then he's laying in a gurney, and there is Misty in a bed not moving. Well, there's Misty in a gurney not moving, and then the John that they were with in a gurney not moving, and he is being taken away. Then we switch over to Eden, and she is now a prostitute in Las Vegas watching people and is sad talking to Alex, who gives her money and says that she should get out of the business if she can. Eden doesn't want to take the money because she knows what you have to do in order to get that money. And Alex is like, my girlfriend wants me out of the business too. It's okay. She's surprised by someone actually being kind to her. And she remembers something that her church taught her with the phrase, introduced from a place of deep indoctrination, before she heads to a Catholic church. No one is inside of that church, and she prays to God to forgive her for what she has done and thanks him for the good Samaritans that have been in her life. Then she asks God to help her and asks Andrew to help her as well. Switch over to Seth, and he calls his dad to see about going home, but hangs up before actually talking to his dad. He is getting attracted to the gym bro and is scared to put moves on him. He also thinks about how his cousin Clay had abused him when they were younger and did some do's together. He has sex with the gym bro in the sauna. Apparently, it was a decoy because he goes back up to his room and Carl is mad. And Carl is like, collect your things and get the frick out because I didn't tell you that you could have other relationships outside of me. Switching over to Whitney, there's more sex, more drugs, harder drugs, black tar this time. And she loves it so much and hates it at the same time. Spoiler alert, she overdoses on black tar. Switch over to Ginger, and she can't please Alex anymore during sex because sex is her job. She also generally can't find Alex during the day, and Alex isn't coming home. Meanwhile, she goes outside, and Whitney's stuff is being sold by the landlord because she OD'd on black tar and is over at the hospital, and nobody knows if she'll be coming home. Ginger meets up with Alex, who is turning tricks, gets mad at Alex for hustling both of them into a threesome, which turns out to be an undercover cop who arrests them both. We switch over to Cody, who wakes up in a hospital thinking about joining Jack. He hears that the suspect who attacked them was Missy's boyfriend, and it looks like Cody is actually in a coma, and he's got a little bit of awareness and is watching things happen around him, but doesn't fully know what's going on. He's crying, laying in bed, thinking about Ronnie and his mom and possibly moving on, but he doesn't want to let go yet. Switch over to Eden at the Catholic Church that is full of good people helping her that she didn't believe existed because she was like pretty sure most people in the world sucked after everything that she'd been through. She calls Earth hell and is now hitting peak after school special with this quote: "Walk Straight is an amazing place, a rescue for teen prostitutes who want to turn their lives around, and all they have to do is ask. I didn't know to ask, but Father Gregory did. It's run by exceptional women," he told me, and an ex-prostitute herself. When she got out, she wanted to help other young people get off the street. You'll have a place to live and education. They'll help you decide how to shape your future. If you have a pimp, they'll encourage you to testify against him, and they'll go to court with you so you don't have to be afraid to put him away. When I got here, they cleaned me up, fed me, and had a doctor run some tests. She gets some help from the church and then contacts Andrew's mom, who works at a university, so she has a public email address. Andrew has been looking for her, she's told, and she wants to get home to him as soon as possible. She also, when asked, tells the people at the ministry that her parents are dead because she doesn't want to be returned to her parents at all. She wonders if Andrew will actually take her back after everything that she's been through, and already he has emailed her saying that he can't wait to see her again. She says, "I love you, but I don't know when I will see you again." Switch over to Seth, and he is directionless, homeless, tries contacting Loren, and eventually hears that Loren has a new partner that reminds him of Seth, but he is very happy with this guy. He then meets this guy named David and starts living with him. They're sort of softcore dating as he secretly starts escorting for money. Clearly, David is not chill with this because he has to escort secretly. Switch over to Whitney, and Whitney is in the hospital going through withdrawals. Her entire family is there saying that they're going to help her rebuild their relationships. Everything is going to be fine. You're not alone, Whitney. We found you. We are going to help you get through this. And while Whitney goes into rehab with her family around her, she's pretty sure that she's doomed. Switch over to Ginger, who is now in court. The court finds both her and Alex to be victims of a pimp since they are both teenagers that were forced into prostitution. They then get separated. Alex is sent to a home for teen mothers because she has been impregnated by one of the Johns that she had. And then Ginger returns home. Her mother is dying, has probably less than a year to live, and grandma is taking care of everything. Ginger believes now is the time to find herself and maybe she will become a writer. Finally, we switch to Cody, and the last message is a vague sign-off that says maybe he will give in to the coma and die, or maybe he will live. It's more or less open and just feels like it was left open-ended in case the author wanted to do a follow-up book, which about 7 years later did come. And that is the end of that. What have we learned? If you have sex, you will be trafficked and die and do drugs and die. That is the moral of this story. I think there are much more effective ways to talk about this than this book. So getting into the final, messy comments for not the rest of this book. At the beginning of this novel is the quote, "This book is dedicated to the fine members of law enforcement, social work, and the judiciary who truly care about young people forced to walk the streets in search of simple sustenance." With a major nod to Randy Sutton and the Las Vegas PD, Judge William Boy, and Children of the Night. It feels very weird. Like, I understand probably where she got the inspiration to want to do this. There's also an author's note that I'm going to read at the ending of this. I understand where the inspiration came from, but because of the way that this is written, that doesn't really come across. And it's such a weird dedication to have, especially at the beginning of the book. Maybe fitting with the teenage audience, every situation in this book felt like a live or die situation. And immediately when I was introduced to all 5 of the characters, I was like, does this author just specialize in writing complete stereotypes of the worst, the complete inaccurate, bad stereotypes of the worst kind of situations? Because that's all that it feels like. Between both this, Sold, and Crank, I think the only thing that I'm getting from the choice to use verse is that it gives the author the chance to write something traumatic and just connect traumatic scenes for a teen audience without focusing too much on the graphic. But this did have more graphic scenes. It also allows the author to not have to actually world build or sense build and just skip from the most traumatic things, which I think is just lazy. Still, having read 2 of Ellen Hopkins' books now, and then also having heard about Identical, which is about a girl who had a twin sister who died at birth and ends up being the twin sister that lives, ends up being sexually abused by her father and develops a split personality. And it's all about, you've got the sex addiction, you've got the child abuse, you've got the MPD. And it just feels like this author likes to write the worst case scenario possible to beat you over the head with it, then selling sensationalized abuse literature to teenagers, which just, I don't like it. Not that it matters what I like, but I think that it's gross. Everyone in this book is an extreme laundry list of drugs and behaviors, and it makes all 5 characters feel the same. Like, think of the difference that it could have made if one of the characters actually came from a good family, especially if it wants to go, these are different ways to get trafficked. Okay, here's maybe a more normal way, is one of the characters came from a bad family. We'll stick with Alex, who is being abused by her father or her guardian or whatever. So if Ginger had actually come from a good family, and then saw that Alex was in trouble, and Alex was like, I'm gonna run away, and Ginger tried to convince her not to run, just come and live with me, and Alex was like, no, I can't, I have to get out of here. So then Ginger ran away with Alex so that she wouldn't be alone, even though she came from a good family. That would have been, I think, more compelling and given more variation, because it's then a friend trying to support a friend and getting trafficked while not being from a bad situation. And it doesn't have to do with neglectful parents, but it has to do with a kid thinking that she has to solve the problems with her friend and keep her friend out of trouble, and also getting swept into this trouble. So a little more variation would have made this better. Side note, obsessive sex narratives say nothing to me, and I don't understand why there are so many of them, especially with teenagers. There is a lot of focus of religious trauma in Ellen Hopkins' books as well. And for the final thing, the author's note at the end of this book was, quote, I am often asked how I decided to write about a certain topic. This one was inspired by a statistic I came across. Did you know that the average age of female prostitution in the United States is 12 years old? This book doesn't explore the base reason for the statistic. Young children are imported into this country from places like Thailand and Africa to serve as child prostitutes. Other books do address the issue, and I may too one day. But for this purpose of this book, the statistics piqued my interest into teen prostitution. Trix looks at a handful of reasons that might drive a young adult to sell his or her body. Here, in the real life, almost always you can distill the reasons to survival. Prostitution is not a glamorous profession. Even high-priced call girls often end up addicted, abused, or worse. No one deserves the kind of mistreatment often perpetuated by Johns and pimps. Whatever the reason for resorting to prostitution, whatever has happened in someone's past, the future is theirs to shape. The first step is to find a way out. If you or someone you know has reached that place and are under the age of 18, there is help. A wonderful organization called Children of the Night will help you off the street and help you start over. All you have to do is ask. Their hotline number is 800-551-1300. But if you can't remember that, dial 911. Local law enforcement can put you in touch with them. A couple of things about this. What is the likelihood that somebody who is a child prostitute will run across this book first before being able to run across the internet and go, how do I save myself from this in the situation? And then like how to figure out who to call. This book didn't do a very good job of showing these characters' lives. It says that it wanted to show different ways to get trafficked and that everything comes down to survival, but it didn't really show these characters doing that. It just sensationalized scenes of drugs and sex and then says that in the end, but didn't actually build it into the story. And so it just feels like sensationalized mess of of sex and garbage to say this is bad. So my final note on that is that I can't stand books which purpose is just what this one did, to say horrible things happen. Look at all these horrible things. Let me beat you over the head with horrible things. There's no story, no character, no build, no setting, no nothing. And then it requires an author's note to be like, I did this to educate. Out of Darkness did the same thing, where it also said, I did this to educate, but I also made stuff up, but I also want to treat this as historical fiction when it's not. I get so sick of this. And it just is an excuse to abuse the reader and pretend that you're righteous while doing it. And I also think that it abuses teenagers, especially because it uses these high emotions and the naivety to tug at the emotions to get that response from teenagers. And I think that it's irresponsible. But those are my thoughts on this book. Let me know what yours are, because, you know, my thoughts are they're just mine, and they don't mean anything beyond what I think. So with that said, looking forward to the discussion in the comments down below. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?